Hey everyone, I'm Jessica, and I'd like to share with you the challenging experiences I've had with my stepmother, Carol. To be clear, I refer to her as Carol because she has never played a motherly role in my life, nor has she shown any interest in doing so. From the very start, when my father, Frank, introduced us, Carol made her feelings crystal clear. She told me, in no uncertain terms and away from my dad, "Don't get any ideas about me being your mom. You're just my husband's child, and that's it. You're old enough to take care of yourself, so don't expect me to go out of my way for you." I tried to keep the peace, responding, "That's fine, Carol. I'm quite self-sufficient. I just want Dad to be happy. I promise I won't be a problem for you." But Carol saw me as an obstacle, saying, "You're already causing trouble. Don't think you can outsmart me. I've dealt with teens before, and once you're 20, I'll make sure you're out of our lives for good. Then, I'll have Frank all to myself." Her hostility didn't end there. Carol even insulted my late mother, which hurt deeply. My mom passed away when I was just 10, and it took my father a long time to open his heart to love again. Because of this, I hesitated to tell Dad about Carol's cruel words and actions, a decision I regret. Carol's behavior only worsened after marrying my dad, surprising him with her sudden change. She made it her mission to drive me away, openly expressing her dislike for children and her desire not to have me around, something she had conveniently omitted before marrying Dad. When Dad stood by me, Carol resorted to sabotage, like ruining her meals and blaming me. She would complain to Dad, saying, "Look at what your daughter has done. She's deliberately ruined my cooking because I won't cook for her. She'll probably poison me next." Caught in the middle, Dad would ask for my side, to which I'd honestly reply, "I have no idea what she's talking about, Dad. I'm happy to prepare my meals. I wasn't even here earlier. I grabbed takeout to eat in my room." This situation left me feeling trapped in a never-ending cycle of accusations and misunderstandings, desperately wishing for peace and unity in our family. Let me be clear, if steps aren't taken, I truly fear for my safety because of Carol's actions. For the 3 years she's been a part of my life, she's done unimaginable things, starting with petty acts like excessively salting her food to falsely accuse me. This might sound minor, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. My dad eventually believed my side of the story, thankfully, due to the overwhelming evidence I gathered over time. Carol's antics ranged from cutting off my phone service, locking me out of the house for hours, misplacing my car keys on an important exam day, to even discarding a project I spent a week completing. Despite my dad's attempts to address these issues, Carol never changed her ways, only pretending to mend her behavior temporarily before reverting to her harmful actions. After enduring a year of this, I decided to take control where I could. I got a job and began paying for my essentials, aiming to minimize Carol's involvement in my life. While my dad was saddened by this development, I reassured him it was better for me to be financially independent. Carol, who saw my dad's finances as her own, was displeased with any spending on me, pushing me to keep a low profile in hopes of avoiding her wrath. Yet she persisted in her efforts to make my life miserable, sticking to her vow to drive me out of the house and out of her life. Little did she know, fate had a twist in store for both of us. The real chaos unfolded just weeks after my 20th birthday. Carol seemed unusually cheerful, likely believing she'd soon be rid of me. But I was one step ahead, having overheard her plotting with a friend over the phone about how she planned to force me out. Prepared and informed, I was not taken aback when I found my belongings packed in my room upon returning from work. Instead of feeling defeated, I was intrigued by her move. I confronted her with a calm, curious tone. "Hey, Carol, why are my things packed? Are we going on a trip?" Her attempt to unsettle me fell flat. I was not about to let her enjoy the satisfaction of seeing me distressed. My question, laced with a hint of sarcasm, was my way of signaling that her plan was no secret to me, and that I was not as vulnerable as she had hoped. Carol smugly reminded me of her vow to evict me the moment I turned 20. "Remember I told you I'd kick you out once you're an adult? Well, the time has come for you to leave. Out of the goodness of my heart, I've even packed your belongings to make your exit smoother," she declared, thinking she was doing me a favor. "Oh, so you're trying to kick me out of my own home?" I replied, my tone calm but firm. "Oh, no, Carol, this isn't just any house. This is my house, and you have no grounds to force me out. We'll see what Frank has to say about this," I countered. Carol's smirk grew wider, betraying her confidence. She was already daydreaming about repurposing my room, but I had a surprise for her that would turn the tables entirely. With a serene demeanor, I pulled out some documents from my bag and handed them to her. Seeing her puzzled look, I couldn't help but smirk. I suggest you take a good look at these papers, Carol. It seems today's the perfect day for you to discover them, especially with your eviction plans for me. Initially confused, Carol's expression morphed into one of shock and disbelief as she read the documents. When she finally looked up, her face flushed with anger, she blurted out, "Is this an eviction notice for me? What in the world, Jessica? What do these papers mean?" "They mean, Carol, that it's you who has to leave this house within a month. That's what eviction notices usually imply," I calmly explained. Fuming, Carol retorted, "You can't serve me eviction papers. This is my home. I'm the one who decides who leaves and stays." "Carol, this has always been my home. My father was merely managing it on my behalf until I came of age. And now that I'm 20, the property legally belongs to me. I've just finished the necessary legal formalities," I clarified, watching her disbelief grow. "That's impossible. Frank can't just hand over the house to you. It's a marital asset, and he can't transfer it without my consent," Carol argued, visibly panicked. "Carol, this house was mine long before you entered the picture. It belonged to my maternal grandparents, who left it to me, with my father acting as the custodian until I turned 20. It seems you weren't aware of this little detail," I informed her, enjoying the realization dawning on her face. Refusing to accept the truth, Carol sputtered, "You're lying. This can't be happening. You're trying to scam me, to kick me out. Just wait until Frank hears about this." But the truth was undeniable. The house was legally mine, and Carol's schemes had finally caught up with her. Karma, as they say, had made its move. Carol, in a moment of utter folly, decided to call my father into the fray, completely overlooking the crucial step of consulting him about her plan to evict me. It's a basic courtesy, after all, to discuss such matters, especially when it involves family. But Carol, perhaps knowing too well what his response would be, chose to sidestep this discussion and proceeded with her scheme to force me out. In her rush, she seemed to forget this detail, but I couldn't be more pleased with her slip-up. It brought Dad directly into the situation, which worked out even better for me. Dad came down to see what the commotion was about, his presence immediately calming the storm. "Why all the shouting, Carol? What's the problem?" he asked, his tone a mix of confusion and concern. Carol, however, didn't hold back, accusing me of making outrageous claims about owning the house and insisting on her eviction. As expected, Dad turned to me for clarity. He's always been fair, a trait that Carol detested because she preferred him blindly supporting her regardless of the circumstances. Their disagreements on this matter were frequent, yet Dad remained impartial, seeking to understand both sides of any story. "So," I explained, "Carol confronted me, saying she was kicking me out, claiming this was her house and that I no longer had a place here. I had overheard her plotting to do this on the phone, so I took preemptive action by serving her an eviction notice." Dad was visibly upset by this revelation. "Carol, who gave you the right to decide on evicting Jessica? We never discussed such a thing. Why am I only finding out about this now?" His disappointment was palpably, highlighting the breach of trust. Carol, caught off guard by the eviction notice and now by Dad's interrogation, momentarily panicked before resorting to her usual defensive stance. She argued, "Jessica's an adult now, Frank. She's been living here without paying rent for a month since turning 20. It's common for parents to encourage their children to become independent at this age. We're just trying to teach her responsibility." Dad, however, wasn't swayed. "That decision is mine to make, Carol, not yours alone. You should have discussed it with me first." His statement underscored his role in our family and his commitment to fairness and mutual respect, qualities that Carol lacked. And my dad firmly corrected Carol, emphasizing that she had never played a parental role, nor contributed towards anything for me. "How could you assume you had the right to decide about Jessica's living situation? You've been unfair," he said. Carol, clinging to her belief that as his wife she had equal rights to the house, insisted it was also hers and that I had to leave. But Dad countered, revealing the house was legally mine, not theirs, leaving Carol shocked and in disbelief. She couldn't grasp the reality that Dad supported my claim to the house, a place she had mistakenly believed she could control. Overwhelmed by the truth, she accused Dad of betrayal. "Why would you do this? You should have consulted me." Dad, however, stood his ground, highlighting her hypocrisy. "You had no qualms about trying to evict Jessica without a word to me. This house was always meant for Jessica. I've merely been managing it until she came of age." Carol's shock deepened as Dad offered to show her the documents for proof, which she was too stunned to consider seriously. Feeling deceived, she accused, "Frank, you lied to me. This isn't fair." But Dad clarified, "I never lied. You assumed without asking. Remember our prenup? Our assets were to remain personal." Her accusations continued, painting me as the ungrateful one for throwing them out. But I made it clear, "I'm not evicting Dad, Carol. This unfortunate outcome is the result of your actions. I might have considered letting you stay if you hadn't tried to force me out." This confrontation peeled back the layers of misunderstandings and revealed the hard truths, setting the stage for profound changes in our family dynamics. Deep down, I always had a feeling Carol wasn't right for our family. That intuition led me to insist on a prenuptial agreement before she married my dad. I feared she might jeopardize our future, especially with financial issues, and I wanted to safeguard against that. It was my way of looking out for us, showing my dad he was always in my thoughts. My main wish is for my dad to find happiness. And if Carol isn't contributing to that happiness, it might be healthier for them to part ways. I spent considerable time reassuring my dad that he's been nothing but a fantastic parent, far from the villain Carol portrayed him to be. He's done so much for me, and he needed to understand his worth. I won't hide the fact that I felt a sense of relief knowing my dad was considering ending things with Carol. After everything she's put us through, it's clear she's not the partner my dad needs or deserves. Our heartfelt conversation led to a peaceful night, with my dad spending it in the guest room, marking the beginning of a new chapter, without Carol's chaos. Feeling a newfound peace with the thought of Carol's imminent departure, I believed we had finally taught her a valuable lesson. Yet, the next morning presented an unexpected turn. Carol was overcompensating, making breakfast and showering me with kindness, as if overnight, she had transformed into the epitome of care and affection. Even my dad cast skeptical glances, puzzled by her sudden change in behavior. Despite the awkwardness, I managed a polite thank you for the breakfast, all the while wondering about the sincerity of her actions. I told Carol plainly that her efforts were unnecessary. "I've been taking care of myself for the last 5 years, Carol. We don't need to start pretending things can change just like that," I expressed, skeptical of her sudden desire to bond over meals as a family. It was clear to me that we were moving past the point where such gestures could make any difference. Carol insisted on her new role, aiming to foster a close mother-daughter relationship, a concept that seemed forced and unrealistic given everything that had happened. Understanding Carol's motivations, I could see she was desperately trying to navigate her way out of a tight spot, having spent the night devising a strategy to salvage her position. But I, knowing her past actions too well, and my dad, barely concealing his amusement at her antics, were far from convinced. "Carol, first off, I'm 20 now. The time when I might have needed another parental figure has long passed. I'm self-sufficient. Moreover, you and the role of mother don't align. So, no, I'm not interested in whatever plan you've cooked up," I responded with finality. Carol attempted to appeal to my sense of forgiveness, suggesting her past mistreatment could be overlooked for the sake of forming a happy family, and ostensibly to strengthen her marriage with my dad. But it was evident her motivations were more about securing her place in the house than genuine familial concern. "I'm not sure what marriage you're trying to fortify, especially with the looming end of it. Attempting to stay in this house under pretenses won't work, Carol. I've made my decision," I concluded, reaffirming my stance. Her actions and intentions had made it clear. It was time for her to leave, and no last-minute change of heart could alter the course we were on. My dad had made his intentions clear. The divorce was inevitable due to the irreparable harm Carol had caused. Her last-ditch effort to play the victim fell flat, especially since the prenup she had signed left her with no financial leverage over us. Finding herself without options, Carol resorted to tears, pleading with both me and my dad for forgiveness and another chance. That day, our patience was tested as we endured her continuous pleas for mercy. My dad eventually stepped out to consult with his lawyer, kickstarting the divorce process. Carol was officially served the divorce papers within a week, marking the end of her bargaining. We explained to Carol that it was time for her to stand on her own 3 feet, suggesting she find employment and legal representation for the divorce. Despite her initial hope of changing our minds, her time in our home came to an end as agreed. She resisted leaving, but the threat of further legal action pushed her to finally move out, tears in her eyes, to stay with a friend alienated from her own family due to her actions. With Carol's departure, a sense of peace returned to our home, transforming it back into the warm and welcoming place it once was. Over 3 years have passed since then, I'm now in college, close enough to home to maintain a close bond with my dad, who has since finalized the divorce. He's ventured back into the dating scene, not to remarry, but simply to enjoy the company of others. Carol, on the other hand, has faced her own set of challenges. Last I knew, she was living in a shared apartment, struggling to make ends meet in a minimum wage job due to her limited skills. On a rare occasion, I saw her from a distance at a grocery store, visibly aged and worn by her circumstances. It seemed karma had indeed caught up with her, serving as a harsh lesson on the repercussions of her actions and decisions.